Mortgage rates just hit their lowest point in over 3 years, and why buyers are asking themselves if they should buy a property. We're going to tell you exactly what to do when interest rates drop.
Everything you read online right now is buy. Interest rates are low. I think it comes down to, we talk about this all the time. I mean, Gabe, you were buying real estate on hard money interest rates, 8-9%. Mitch and I have done that. I think rates are obviously critical, right? It lowers your cost of capital, increases your cash flow if you buy right, if you put responsible debt on it. It allows you to do things like the new 0 to 100 BRRRR method, which instead of rehab, you reposition the net operating income, reposition the financials. The interest rates that are low allow you to refinance, return capital, and do it again. That said, though, I feel like there's way too much emphasis put on interest rates. I mean, people were buying real estate when there was double-digit interest rates in like the 70s and the early 80s, and they're worth, hundreds of millions of dollars now. So I would just encourage people to just stick to the fundamentals, man. Like understand the debt.
You know what, Travis? I agree. Most people that are talking about interest rates, like outside of us three, of course, like they're not buying real estate. They're talking about real estate. They're like, oh, rates dropped down in the 5s. Should I buy? I don't know. You haven't bought the last 20 years. So are you actually going to buy? Look, there are opportunities, just like there's opportunities in every market. There's opportunities in every interest rate environment. If the maths, buy the deal. Like you can borrow. I've purchased real estate with 0% interest loans, and I've purchased real estate with 15% interest loans. There's ways to win in real estate regardless of what the interest rate environment is. Look, there's a time to take advantage of the market. But if you're trying to time the market, especially trying to time interest rates, I understand for like a first-time home buyer, or rates dropped in the low 3s and you had people buying. I get it. That's your primary residence. You want that low payment. And yes, if you have high interest and rates drop, it's a great time to refinance. But as rates drop, prices come down. Like people have more buying power. So as you see rates drop, as you see lending guidelines loosen, there's just more money in the market and prices actually go up. And so to me, it's like, it's a talking point. Yay, rates are in the 5s. Like if rates keep dropping, if they get in the 4s and 3s, yeah, I may refinance some of my existing real estate. But the point there is, I have existing real estate. Get in the fucking game. You can get in the game whether it's 3% money, 5% money, 10% money. I know people that have borrowed 25% money and they still own millions of dollars of real estate. And then instead of trying to time the market, if the deal makes sense at 25% interest, buy the deal. And then you go refi with lower interest. Now you're really killing it. And that's where the magic is. Like, don't get caught up in all this. What are interest rates doing? Take advantage of the market and time in the market, but don't try to time the market because of interest rates.
Well, I think also like interest rates only matter so much. I think when they do really affect the market is less about the rate and more about the rate of change of interest rates. So for example, we saw the rate of change speed up very, very, very fast. In fact, like historically, one of the fastest interest rate hikes in the last couple of years. What happened is it created, I think, less opportunity. We entered into a market that was a bit of a stalemate. I'm not saying no opportunity, but there was less opportunity in the last year or so, 2 years, when interest rates went up to 8 or 9%. The reason being is sellers have expectations of what they want to sell their property for. They've been hearing about their property values at 5% interest rates for years. So what happens is you go approach them and say, hey, Mr. Seller, you got to take a $500,000 haircut or $1 million haircut. And they're like, no, not a chance. And so the transaction volume absolutely fell during the interest rate hike. But I think it's less about the rate and it's more about the rate of change. When the Federal Reserve yanks the interest rates way up or way down, it does fundamentally change the opportunities in the marketplace. However, the market tends to correct itself. Even in the high interest rate environment, 6 months later, that seller goes, yeah, I wasn't going to take a haircut 6 months ago, but I got to retire or whatever. I want to take chips off the table. And now they're willing to sell and the market started to loosen up. Today, interest rates have come down. I think it's closer to a healthier market where there's buyers and sellers and they're coming to agreement. But the interest rate change does affect things. If you like what you're hearing on this podcast and want to come and hang out with us, as well as other members who are scaling in cash flow real estate, you've got to check out our elite mastermind. Inside, we've got investors who own hundreds of millions of dollars in real real estate and are doing amazing things. We'd love for you to come join us. Click the link below.
I agree and I disagree. Where I agree is, yeah, you're right. It does affect things for those that are in the game. And where you're wrong is also it only affects those that are in the game. And you have a lot of people saying, I'm going to wait until interest rates come down. They do the same thing with prices. I'm going to wait until prices come down. And 10 years later, they're not in the game. They don't own any real estate. So the biggest impact are those that are in the game. So you get in the game I have some commercial properties that I started to negotiate on when interest rates were in the fours. I still bought those properties because they worked on the fundamentals and the lending at the time. But instead of buying those in the 4% with 4% money, I ended up buying them in the low sixes. Now, what happens in those properties? Now, they cash flow well. I bought them on fundamentals based on the lending I got at the time. I think one of those properties is, I want to say 6.25, one at 6.5. Well, when rates drop on commercial properties in the low fives, then I can refinance those properties. But if I was buying in the low fives, the price point might be way higher. But I've also cash flowed these properties for the last, 5 years, right? Because I'm in the game. So now when interest rates drop, I can take advantage, refinance, either pull some cash out, reduce my interest rate, increase my cash flow. But a lot of people that are waiting on the sidelines for interest rates to drop, waiting on the sidelines for prices to come down, they never enter the game. They're not in the game, and they're not actually taking advantage of the opportunity when rates do change. So get in the game regardless of interest rates and quit being a little bitch.
Yeah, I think that you do hit it on the nail on the head. I think having the asset to begin with gives you a lot more opportunity, right? I mean, if you have an asset
you can play the market. You can play the market and you look like a genius when you own the asset.
Yeah. And I think something for people that are just getting into maybe the commercial real estate game, cap rates, the lower the cap rate, the higher the sell price, right? Or the higher the value. And it has an inverse relationship with interest rates. So you higher interest rates, cap rates, they track together. So higher interest rates, higher cap rates, which means higher interest rates, lower value. So, but to Gabe's point, when those rates start compressing, those cap rates also start compressing. All of a sudden, an appraiser is going to come out and look at Gabe's commercial asset or our commercial asset, and it's going to be worth $1 million more, which means you can put more responsible debt, and then you get the double benefit of having cheaper cost of capital, which allows you to maintain that cash flow or improve it. So you're getting sort of increased value, increased cash flow. I also say debt's a tool, and there's different types of debt for different phases of your real estate journey or maybe the journey of a particular asset. Like you might take a double-digit construction loan or maybe hard money because you can close in 2 weeks. You've got an amazing deal. You can purchase the asset cheap for $1 million less than what it's probably worth. But the caveat is you got to close fast. Well, you got to go get hard money, right? You can't go bank debt and go the appraisal and go jump through all the hoops. You get the asset, you secure the asset. Now you own the asset. And now you can force appreciate it. You can improve the net operating income, and then you can go take your time and get good bank debt. So I think people think they apply sort of debt as this like standard vehicle for all phases of a project. And it's not true. There's different types of debt for different types of applications in real estate.
I was going to go back to the conversation about waiting. I think 99% of people wait. They wait because they're scared. They use all the excuses in the world to call a seller, to take action, to make an offer, the interest rates are too high. Oh, the economy. Oh, we got a war. I don't like this administration or the last administration or whatever the hell, excuse you have. And the 1% take action. And then everybody asks why the 1% of the 1%. Well, the 1% actually get in the game, and then they play the market according to, in a way that best fits their real estate. When you own real estate, you can play the marketplace. When interest rates go low, you can do a refi, right? Like we just talked about, cash out. And so I think it comes down to like, you've got to go take action and be a part of that 1%, because with action comes options.